when 70% of Americans
mass
support
confiscation
something,
of wealth from other people is
I'm not doing this with you. When 70% of
I don't want to do it. More rising after this. Goodbye. Go.
When 70% of Americans support a policy, it's not fringe. And you can't just sit there and say it's fringe because you personally don't like it, Robby.
Yeah, he tried to cue the music at the Academy Awards, and Briahna's like, bro, you are not the boss of me. I'm going to sit in this chair and keep talking. Get up and get out of here if you don't want to get waxed on. And that was embarrassing. Honestly, a humiliating L for Robby.
Yeah, this was pretty crazy. You guys know that Robby and Brie have been sort of at each other's throats for a while now on Rising, specifically since the October 7th attacks, and then all of what we've witnessed since then definitely has increased tensions over on the Hills Rising. And here's another pretty shocking example of both of them kind of losing their temper, but specifically Robby here. I thought this was wild once again, but pretty juicy and entertaining, and a decent discussion too that I'm interested in your thoughts on, Zach, as far as this Charlemagne the God endorsement goes.
Oh God, Charlemagne the God.
President Joe Biden has lost another high-profile endorsement for his 2024 bid. Charlemagne the God appeared on The View Wednesday, said he would not endorse Joe Biden in 2024. He did endorse Joe Biden in 2020. The View hosts seem to have a hard time accepting that. Let's watch.
You endorsed Joe Biden back in 2020, but this time around you say you're not going to endorse anybody. Charlemagne, now is not the time, in my opinion, to sit this one out.
Yeah. I didn't say that. I never said I was sitting it out.
What you gonna do?
I'm definitely voting in November, but what I like to focus on is issues, not individuals. Like, you know, when
but
you
why not endorse?
Huh?
Why not endorse Biden?
Because if I'm sitting here telling my listeners that, you know, you have somebody out there who is a threat to democracy, you have somebody out there who said they want to, you know, suspend the Constitution to overthrow the results of an election. You saw this person, you know, try to lead an attempted coup of this country. And I'm telling people that this guy is a threat to democracy. Have you ever read Project 25? Mm-hmm. There's only 2 candidates out there. So if I'm saying that about this individual, the choice is clear, right? And I've seen y'all do this on The View before. I saw y'all do this to Killer Mike when he was on The View. Why do y'all need us to say this if we don't feel comfortable saying it?
No, it's not that we need you to say it, but I think other folks need to hear, because, you know, one of the things I'm sorry, I just jumped you, I'm sorry, but one of the things that we've been talking about is the fact that getting facts out through the media has been very...
It's such a weird way to do a conversation or interview with someone. Like, I support Jill Stein, but if we have someone on the show, I'm not like, so are you going to endorse her? Endorse Jill Stein. Let's hear it. The people need to hear this. Like, just have a conversation. If he wants to do it, you'll do it. If he doesn't, he won't. It's just weird to try to like coax it out of him, like you're Biden's like propaganda team or something.
Also, like a 6-on-1 interview is not exactly how I would structure something like that. You know what I mean? It's like everybody vulture eyes on you. And look, I don't have very similar politics to Charlemagne the God. For people who don't listen to The Breakfast Club, the dude is way into capitalism. He's way into wealth building. He's way into a lot of the, you know, business strategy, exploitation, things that I wouldn't be into. But of course, there's overlap in things that we do agree with. And I think that he makes a lot of sense when he's like, obviously, look, Donald Trump is, you know, he didn't accept the results of the last election. He's, you know, bungled COVID, all the crazy shit, right? The scandals, the trials, the media kerfuffles, whatever it is you don't like about him. You don't need anybody to come out there and say that, right? Okay, well then make your decision. But that doesn't mean that Joe Biden is a good candidate, right? It doesn't mean he's a guy that I want to support. Why don't I want to support him? We'll take a look at the last 4 years, man. It's been a lot of letdowns. Okay, even when people were grasping at straws and trying to pretend that he was doing a good job, and they were like, the CHIPS Act, yeah, look at him, he did something, he passed a bill that's you know, paid off the microchip industry, but hey, at least they're moving it back to America, right? I love extortion, like, you know what I mean? Hey, like, you know what I mean? Okay, great. Like, that was like, people were leaning on that a lot. Other than that, there was not much you could say positively other than getting out of Afghanistan, right? So anyway,
yeah, it's also
an absolute disgrace.
Yeah. Plus, even if you were going to endorse Joe Biden, like, it's kind of a weird time to do it now. I think that if I was like a, you know, high profile celebrity kind of person or commentator, whatever, and I really wanted to drop an endorsement at like a pivotal moment, I would wait till much closer until the election. If you just endorse him now, I mean, people will talk about it for a couple days and then the news cycle moves on. It's not going to matter at all. It's going to be completely meaningless by the time November actually comes around. Also, if you are someone that has a high profile and their endorsement could actually mean something, then again, why would you not try to at least get something in return for it? At least try to apply some pressure if you are, in fact, dissatisfied with the administration, yet you plan on endorsing anyway. Again, you could say, hey, these are my issues. This is what's wrong with Joe Biden. I hope he goes in a different direction if he hopes to earn my endorsement by November. But it just seems like a weird move to do it right now if you're going to do it at all.
Seems to be very difficult because
I feel like I just spewed some facts.
Yeah.
Yes, but
an
we
endorsement
need you to
from
do
you
it
would
on your
matter.
show.
Well, the reality is I think both candidates are trash. So but I am going to vote in November, and I'm going to vote my best interest, and I'm going to vote who I think, can preserve democracy. So if I think both candidates are trash and I don't feel like, endorsing one, would you rather me endorse an individual or endorse the fact that, hey, we need to go out here and protect democracy?
Charlemagne goes on to call Republicans crooks, Democrats cowards, and said the couch is voter apathy. He says voter apathy seems to be winning. Yeah, no argument there. I think that Charlemagne the God is completely right to say that, like most Americans, both of these options are unsatisfactory. I think Alyssa Farah is right to bring up this double hater language. That term got coined because there's so many people who feel that way and needed to get a name. And the sort of frantic panic of the rest of the host trying to get him to fall in line is really endemic of what a lot of, frankly, third-party voters have been experiencing for a long time. That line in particular that you are sitting this one out if you criticize the major two-party candidates or the one that's more to the left is such a kind of form of gaslighting. Like, no, I vote, I participate politically, I just choose to vote for and endorse candidates that actually reflect my beliefs. And if Joe Biden wants to be that candidate, then he's going to have to reflect my beliefs.
Right, because he clearly wasn't saying from his perspective that he thinks they're equally bad. He was, when he talked about attacks on democracy in the election, et cetera, he was clearly signaling that he thinks Trump is worse, but that what I gather is Biden has not met his minimal acceptance standard. And so, and there are other candidates in the race, for people on the left, there are other people.
Also, what I thought was really interesting
was
how, the audacity to just start shouting at the guy about what he should be doing and talking about on his own show, which is about, whatever the fuck he wants. It's called The Breakfast Club. It's not called The Political Hour. It's not called Election Tonight or anything that would be evident that they are obviously going to be talking about the election and he is going to be using. No, if anything, it's just, oh, my listeners are affected by this. I'm affected by this. We're all American citizens. Of course it's going to come up, but it's not the bread and butter of the show. I mean, it's largely a hip hop show. You know what I mean? They're interviewing pop culture guests. So just to be like, we need you to be talking about this on your show. It's like, well, dude, that's none of your business what I talk about on my show. I hate it when people try and tell us what to talk about. You could make a suggestion, but it's like, bitch, start your own show. You have your own show. You talk about whatever the you want. I don't come on here and be like, hey, you know what? I think you should, interview X, Y, and Z. Have Oprah on more. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Plans to vote for Biden, which is my criticism of Charlemagne the God, is that I think he's not going far enough. What he's doing that's
right.
helpful.
If you are voting for Biden, but you're not going to do an endorsement, that seems
just
like a very
say it.
silly
Say I'm voting for Biden. At a certain point, it seems like sophistry. What face are you trying to save here? If you don't like Biden, but you're going to vote for him, then you are succumbing to this vote blue no matter who, and just own that you think it's important to save the democracy and do that.
Right.
But I think what would be actually more powerful and more interesting is if he truly resisted vote blue no matter who, because frankly, the only way, in my view, democracy is going to get saved is if you force the Democrats to actually be democratic and force them to actually uphold their stated values in order to earn those votes. You don't get anything out of saying months and years before an election cycle that no matter what Joe Biden or insert generic Democrat is going to do, you're going to vote for them no matter what. That is a guaranteed formula to make sure your vote is never earned. And when people say, no, I'm withholding my vote, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden as a knee-jerk reflection, what they're often told is you're being apathetic or you want Donald Trump to win. No, I am giving you as a voter an opportunity to court me, to get my vote, but it requires you to actually change your policies that are so anathema to what most Americans want. change on Gaza, do something about the economy, fulfill your promises to black voters, whatever it is, to change, and then you have an opportunity to actually get those votes. But asking voters to say that they're going to commit to voting down for a party, no matter what they say or do, is exactly how you get a Democratic Party that drifts to the right, courting Republican voters whose votes aren't considered to be entitled, given to the Democrats. So they keep courting those people. They keep shifting more and more to the right. Meanwhile, you have an entire base who's standing there with their arms in the air saying, well, what am I, chopped liver? You just have this expectation that I'm going to fall in line. And that's why the most consistent
honestly, just couldn't have said it better myself from Briahna. And it's crazy, too, because it's honestly common sense to react the way that Charlamagne the God is reacting. It's common sense to react the way that Briahna Joy Gray is reacting. It's common sense to be like, hey, I tried biting the bullet. I tried plugging my nose and saving democracy, and you didn't deliver all. You squandered all of your opportunities. You didn't raise the minimum wage. Your infrastructure bill was bullshit. I don't know if you've driven down Broadway. You got a nail in your tire when we were trying to record yesterday. You know what I'm saying? These is rickety ass roads out here. We didn't have better infrastructure. You see bridges all around the Midwest falling apart. Anyway, long story short is Joe Biden did not deliver for the working class at all. He did not deliver for the basis of voters that he needed to. He didn't deliver in any meaningful way for, Latino voters or, people with, recently migrated family members. He tried to sell them down the river and pass a border bill. He kept Title 42 in place for months and months and months and months and months after being in office, right? He totally pivoted to the right on immigration after taking office. The list goes on and on and on and on. And so, of course, people have every right to be pissed off about that. If you don't have a problem with that, if you don't want to push back on that, if you're not willing to withhold your vote after that, I think you're a mark. I think you're just willing to be played forever. And that's what the Democratic Party has always counted on. They've always counted on a base of voters that are willing to be rolled, that are willing to be basically consistently played. They are Charlie Brown kicking the football every single year, and the guilt and the shame and the public admonishments, that's all they have left. And at this point, I think a lot of people they don't give a shit anymore. It's not going to stick to them because they know that the real people who are out there listening, they also feel the same way. They're tired of these bullshit options.
Yep. And instead of running on a narrative or an agenda of completing the job in the next 4 years, this is when the agenda will actually be implemented. Trust us, guys. We're only now just getting started. That would be an idea strategically for Biden to go with. Instead, this is the kind of campaign he's running, just all about how bad Trump is. Take a look at this cringe.
From midnight tweets to drinking bleach to tear gassing citizens and staging a photo op, we knew Trump was out of control when he was president.
Just reminding people of the chaos that Donald Trump represented, but that chaos still exists. Students were just getting tear gassed on college campuses for peacefully protesting, not just students, 70-year-old women, people like Jill Stein and
I was going to say doctors.
Yeah. So it's not like the craziness has subsided necessarily under Joe Biden. A lot of people still feel like the chaos is very much still present in this country. The division is still very much so present in this country, and nothing has really gotten that much better, at least in a tangible sense, if you're not a rich person who's just monitoring the stock market. You know what I'm saying?
underserved voters in America, namely Black voters who vote in line with the Democratic Party at greater numbers and more consistency than any other group in America. Is there a relationship between the promises that are broken to Black Americans and the fact that they will vote for Democrats no matter what? I would argue, yes, there is.
Yeah, I don't know that most Republicans feel like the Democratic Party is actually trying to get their votes.
You heard Joe Biden. He put ads out saying Nikki Haley voters come to me. Has he put an ad out saying
policies that they support? The Democratic Party has moved
his border
far
policy?
to the left.
His
over
border
time.
policy?
Overall, if you go on
See,
most
this is just evidence right here. That's when I love that moment where he doesn't have anything to say about the border policy. He can't just say you're right. He's like, the Democrats have moved. It's like a broken record machine. It's like debating Sean Hannity, or they all have one script and they stick to it.
Yeah, and honestly, like some of the only ways in which the Democratic Party is quote unquote like moved left, I see as like, you know, the NLRB stuff like that with labor, where the Biden administration has been better than previous Democratic administrations, at least in our lifetime. But that's not some like crazy unprecedented move left. If anything, that's just a return to what the Democratic Party should be and historically was, a more union strong, labor oriented party, which again, it's not in its current iteration. But the, small moves that have been made in that direction aren't unprecedented. They're not new and radical. It's actually just a return to, the Democratic Party of old in a sense.
On most issues, the Democratic
There is
Party
a whole suite
way more
of policy. In what way? It's been
That's
worse
what
on
charts.
unions.
Look at charts.
What cultural policy? That's not policy. That's just vibes. Oh, you
Look at charts. The next time I'm up against a corner in a debate, that's going to be my response. Look at the charts, bro.
hang a rainbow flag out outside the White House? What's that actually doing for poor and working class gay
Green
people
New
in this
Deal,
country?
etc.
What? Where's there a Green New Deal? Did Joe Biden pass a Green New Deal?
They all talk in support of it.
Where? When? When did they vote in support of it? When did they actually act and push it? When did you see a single Biden ad talking about how important it is for him to pass a Green New Deal? Never. None.
He talked about the Green New Deal.
He did the Willow Project.
When he was campaigning.
Robby doesn't want to talk about that. Robby, he actually did a bunch of shit you love, and that's the problem. That's what's fucking stupid about Republicans and conservative libertarians, whatever the hell you want to call Robby, right? When somebody I think is disgusting and terrible does something that's accidentally fucking good, like Rand Paul. He doesn't care about Palestinian children. He cares about his wallet, and he cares about, fucking fiscal liberty, whatever. But when he votes right, I'll be like, right. That's right, Rand Paul. You voted right. That was the way to vote that one time on accident. Or maybe like JD Vance will vote correctly on like a weird ass issue where I'm like, no, actually the United States didn't need to be involved in that. And yes, you just care about the bottom line and like America first, but I care about saving lives abroad. So, our Venn diagram is small, but that sliver, I'm willing to concede that they were right on that issue. It's like a short circuit occurs in Robby's brain whenever he's confronted with the fact that Joe Biden did something he actually agrees with. It's like, Robby, you want a crackdown at the border. This man literally drafted a horrible bill that I massively disagreed with, which means you would probably shit your pants with how much you love it, to really crack down and destroy families at the border, a la Donald Trump.
To be fair, Robby is decent on the border compared to other issues. That's like the one thing where he kind of lives up to his libertarian values, but I still totally get what you're saying.
Sure. Okay, well, let's take another issue then, right? Like he is supposedly a libertarian that would lead him to want to get out of the fucking forever wars in the Middle East. I didn't hear him give credit to, Joe Biden for Afghanistan, when she's talking about how whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like, it's impossible for him to understand like, oh, actually he is to the right. Or they were talking about climate change. Like, what do you mean? He actually did a massive expansion of offshore drilling, right? That was what we mentioned with the Willow Project, among others. He gave massive expansions to fucking fracking permits. Do you think that stopped when he took office? Do you think all those Trump projects that were underway somehow halted just because the fucking administration changed? No, he greenlit all of that shit. You know what I'm saying? The fucking Green New Deal.
Yeah, and as you guys could see, like this has been a pretty chill discussion up until this point. It's definitely getting heated, but it's not like there's been anything all that aggressive or extra that's occurred. I really don't understand why Robby gets so pissed off so easily, but let's take a look. This is pretty funny.
The Joe Biden agenda has been the Joe Manchin agenda, and they're frankly proud of it.
Republicans can take comfort in that the Democrats don't accomplish all of the lofty societal transformations that they promised.
Bro, do you want to talk about some of the lofty societal transformations of the Republican Party, Robby? Do you want to start talking about those lofty societal transformations? You want to talk about how Donald Trump recently floated banning abortion and then tried to walk it back? Did you see that, Gavin?
Yeah, I did see that.
This is the kind of shit that he because Donald Trump, he has no actual conviction or ideology. He just plays to whatever crowd he's in. And when they surround him, and when he's doing the Republican right-wing circuit and they surround him with the pro-lifers, he just can't help himself. He'll be like, maybe we get rid of birth control. I don't know, folks. Maybe we do. Maybe we have more babies. I like babies. Do you like babies? I think everybody likes babies. I don't know. I think we need to have more children. Yeah, and then then his advisors are like, that's going to get clipped and run everywhere and cost you like 3 points in Michigan. So you have some work to do now.
Yeah. All right. Let's hear this, guys. This is pretty good.
Republicans can be take comfort in that the Democrats don't accomplish all of the lofty societal transformations that they promised.
Lofty societal transformations. An overwhelming majority of Americans want there to be a wealth tax. This is not a partisan issue. The overwhelming majority of Americans want there to be universal health care. This is not a fringe leftist issue. I just did a radar running down.
Issue.
When 70% of Americans
mass
support
confiscation
something,
of wealth from other people is
I'm not doing this with you. When 70% of
I don't want to do it. More rising after this. Goodbye. Go.
When 70% of Americans support a policy, it's not fringe. And you can't just sit there and say it's fringe because you personally don't like it, Robby. 70% of Americans support.
Wasn't that weird? He tried to just end the show early.
He tried to cue the music at the Academy Awards, and Briahna's like, bro, you are not the boss of me. I'm going to sit in this chair and keep talking. Get up and get out of here if you don't want to get waxed on. And that was embarrassing. Honestly, a humiliating L for Robby. When you take a huge power move, when you try and get into, oh my God, we need to play that one more time and relive the humiliation that just occurred for Robby. We all know who the alpha is on the block now. I mean, we already knew. But they like play him off for half a second, and then somebody else is like, don't you fucking play her off. And then they're like, yep, you're right. Actually, this is going to have to keep going. Oh my God, let's live that one more time.
I'm not doing this with you. When 70% of
I don't want to do it. More rising after this. Goodbye. Go.
When 70% of Americans support a policy, it's not fringe. And you can't just sit there and say it's fringe because you personally don't.
Goodbye. Go.
I think
so
it's funny
rude.
I don't think Briahna at this point gives a fuck if they're still on the air anymore. It's like, you are going to hear the point that I was making. Like, I'm going to sit, and I respect that. I was like, man. And it's so funny too, because I don't know, the energy, maybe they've just discussed, you know, in the past, like, hey, you know, I'm going to be like a really bratty twat to you, Briahna. And that's my character that I'm playing on air for views. Because I just think, you know, you're really nice and smart and, you know, you have a lot going for you. So I should be the antagonist, you know, your perfect foil. Maybe they've had that conversation and that's why he behaves like this. But boy,
I don't know, bro.
What a face plant. It's a belly flop off the high dive.
Yeah, dude, it's tough to, you know, be that good of an actor. And I sense real, genuine resentment from Robby. Like, I mean, if he is just performing that, then he's a Academy Award worthy actor. Like, he really does a good job. If it's
casting him in his upcoming short film.
Yeah, hit me up, Robby. But yeah, dude, that seems real to me. It really does. And I don't know, bro. It's just wild to me because like the whole point of Rising is that they don't necessarily agree on everything. It's like one progressive and one more right-leaning host, and basically every iteration since the beginning of the show. So all that Brie is doing by initiating a little bit of a debate is making the segment interesting. That's the point. People don't just want to sit here and watch these two agree with each other for 12 minutes. The whole appeal of the show is that it is kind of a debate show, and that's why people tune in, to hear the clash of perspectives. So as soon as she starts to kind of disagree with him a little bit, he just flies off the rails and takes it so personally, seemingly. And we've seen him do this like time and time again. So I do find it bizarre. As much as the content is juicy and hilarious, I do genuinely find it a little bit bizarre how thin-skinned this guy is. Like, when you disagree with me on air, I almost savor it. I'm like, hell yeah, let's get into it.
This is clippable content. Are we talking about UBI again?
Exactly. I can't imagine just, you know, rage quitting over a little bit of pushback.
You know, anyway,
all
let's
right,
play it out.
Yep.
Like it, Robby. 70% of Americans support the policy. So my point is this:
70% of Americans
Joe
support what?
Biden universal health care.
That, depending on asked, I'm sure most Americans think that health care should be provided to people. How we actually pay for that and
okay,
what the
let's
policy...
clip that guy right there. Dude, this is how easy it is to back a libertarian into a fucking corner, man. Sam Cedar made a career out of this, by the way, because it's fucking hilarious how little critical thinking has been applied to their positions. They'll just say these, yeah, you know, these fringe blue-haired lefties want this, and she'll be like, no, a vast majority of Americans want this. Do you believe in democracy? Also, do you know what the definition of fringe minority means? Do you know what these terms that you're saying mean? Or are you just saying them because it fits your talking points? And then he's like, well, okay, well, I'm sure a bunch of people actually do want these things, and I'm sure people do think that healthcare is a human right. Okay, well, we live in a democracy, and if a clear majority of people think that, Don't you think we should put that into action? And then here you're going to hear that libertarians and Republicans tend to actually hate democracy when push comes to shove. It's all about their wallet at the end of the day.
How much of them want Obamacare or socialized medicine, then they get
We've been
very little
talking
support.
about billions of dollars going out the door for Israel for weeks. It's something that you don't agree with, but at no point did you say, how can we pay for that? Not once.
What do you? I don't.
We've been talking about,
I don't want to
but you haven't questioned how we're going to pay for it. You said we
one more
shouldn't pay
time?
for
That's
it.
another one. She just gave him the 2-piece and a soda right there, bro. That was hilarious. Okay, so she's just caught him with his pants down. Oh my goodness, it's like a your first day of 7th grade, and some kid picks on you, and so he runs up behind you in the hallway and he pantses you, and then you fall over, and then they grab your shirt and they pull it over your head, and they're like, ha ha, and then you're stumbling around, your pants are around your ankles, you're like hoping that your penis doesn't fall out of your pee hole, you're like fucking freaking out, and then for a final blow, when you just thought it couldn't get any worse, she hits him with tumbles him right into the dumpster, one of those big old, fucking 20-gallon dumpster rollers, and it's all over for him. Kids are throwing their lunch on him on the way out. He's never gonna live it down. 5 years later, I'm just kidding. We won't make a Parkland joke. It's still too soon.
There's an expectation that when it comes to military spending, of course, we can pay for it. The second
I don't think we can pay for it. No, we're running up. No, we cannot afford to do the military spending we're doing.
About delivering for the health and welfare of the American people. That phrase comes up again.
That's not true at all. I don't think
nowhere.
We can afford. That's just absolutely misrepresenting my position. I
This
do
is
not
a very
think we can
compelling
afford
argument
the
by
military
Robby.
spending we're doing at all.
Proud of
I
you.
would bet every dollar in my bank account that you haven't said, how are we going to pay for that one time in a year?
How are we going to pay for it? We can't pay
pay
for it, and we should. I don't want to raise
and yet
taxes
you've
and
not
pay
said
for the
that.
military spending.
You haven't said, how are we going to pay for it? Not a single time.
I mean, you're right. I've been preoccupied with, yes, we should not pay for it, but we also can't afford to do it, and
well, how
the
about
military
you
is
stick
running
to
up
we
our
should
deficit.
not pay for Medicare for all. Stick with that then. Sit here and stand by the notion that you think that we should not pay for Medicare for all. But most Americans, America, the country, our government should not pay for Medicare for all. That seems to be your stance as you framed it with respect to a bunch of other expenditures.
Right.
But
I don't want the massive bloat that we have in our education and health system and other to impact whether people can get care, like in other countries that have those arrangements where people wait in lines for care
I love how
for weeks and months and years.
people who are Republicans out of one side of their mouth, and I lump Robby in with those people because he's not a true consistent libertarian. Just ask him about the fucking police. But they'll simultaneously they will sit here and tell you that America is the greatest country in the world, that we're capable of doing anything, that our military is the best in the world, that our country is the brightest in the world, that they wouldn't want to live anywhere else, that we're capable of accomplishing anything. We built New York City. We built the fucking, we conquered the, whatever the fuck propaganda these people want to tell you about why America's great. We were World War II champions, whatever the fuck, whatever we tell ourselves to pat ourselves on the back as we all live in fucking 2024, right? Without any real tangible benefits to living in America, right? Outside of the fact that our military is fucking extremely powerful, right? But the long story short is, you're telling me that you believe so much in this country, right? And you believe in democracy, and you believe that 70% of Americans think healthcare is a right that everybody should be able to have, right? You're telling me that in the best country in the world, which you would admit America is, you're telling me that in a country that you think can accomplish anything, that you think we're just too deaf, dumb, blind, too fucked up, too stupid, incapable to provide everybody with the world's best healthcare? Why can we not be a model for the rest of the world? That was kind of the idea that America was predicated on. That's how they sold it to schlubs like us that had to fight and die in the revolution, so that rich assholes didn't have to pay tariffs to a king anymore when they didn't feel like it, right? But where's the juice from the squeeze now? We're not getting any. You know what I mean? Why should we be so defeatist about what our country can accomplish? Why shouldn't we have bullet trains? Why shouldn't we have infrastructure in this country? Why is it so goddamn criminal to suggest that we should invest in the future? Why shouldn't we invest in our schools? I thought it was a no-brainer. I used to seriously believe that it was unfathomable that go ahead and run against funding schools. No, people will run against funding the schools. They want, what do you want? You want the kids to be dumber? You want them to be worse off than you? I don't even have my own fucking kids. I don't care about paying for school. People have to go to fucking school. You know what I mean? Gavin and I wouldn't be able to do this show if we didn't come from a really good publicly funded fucking education system. Like, we're fucking lucky as shit. We don't sound like we're very well educated when we're talking to each other, but boy, we had a pretty fair shake coming out of Johnson County, Kansas. I had some good teachers coming up, regardless of how little they liked me at the time. You know, I learned a decent amount, despite my best efforts not to, right? It's crazy that there's this defeatist attitude that America just can't accomplish anything and that the government should just fuck off. It's like, dude, we are the government. That was the whole point of this fucking country. That was the whole point of this fucking country, man. Like, I hate how I have to explain American history to the people who are the fucking flag wavers. It's like, you wave that flag for no fucking reason, dude. You don't understand. Like, read your Thomas Paine, bro. This is a country that was supposed to be for and by the people. You and me were supposed to be fucking in charge, right? The collective of us. What the fuck did we decide? Now we've got our fucking all of us by the balls, by two institutions, okay? By the mammoth financial institutions that control this country and the military industrial complex, and everything else has been shafted, okay? If you aren't a part of one of those two machines and at the top of them, you're getting absolutely royally fucked. That's why we had a revolution in the first place, guys, okay? Instead of those two things, we just had one thing. It was called the king, and we said, fuck that shit, right? And people fought and died and moved to a new land. It's crazy. It's crazy. People have just given the fuck up.
Coming to America to get the care they can't get in Canada under the system you profess.
Yes, I wish we had healthcare like Canada. I wish we had healthcare like Israel.
Canadians wish they had healthcare like America. But
I wish we had healthcare.
That is
like
a
Israel,
goddamn lie. Check any poll on earth. You literally put it to a vote. That's crazy. That's like saying, like, people want to get rid of Social Security in America. No, we don't. That's a lie. Nobody wants. Like, what are you talking about? Americans, like Canadians, fucking love, like they obviously have criticisms, right? Like, it could be better, like all institutions, it could be more robustly afforded.
Of course.
Canada is a capitalist country in the 21st century that lives in the shadow of America and does, you know, a lot of what we do, just with a little bit more of a European twinge, because they still have a queen or a king, I guess, and whatnot.
Yep. And obviously what Robbie's referring to there is like the top 1% of Canadians sometimes whom cross the Canadian-American border to see like one of the most highly trained specialists in a certain medical field who happens to practice in America and not Canada, because of the fact that America is so much bigger than Canada. Obviously, we do have more doctors, some of which, you know, are maybe higher quality. But again, that's like the richest Canadians that come across the border for specific treatments, and they're paying for those procedures prices which normal Americans and most normal Canadians could not afford. You take your average Canadian or your average, you know, French person or something, you know, ask them if they want to trade in their universal health care for American health care and, you know, pay a shit ton of money for it. Fuck no. Of course they're not going to trade in their healthcare. Of course not. That's absolutely ridiculous. And in fact, it's the complete inverse. Ironically, as you know, Bernie Sanders showed, it's actually a lot of Americans who actually have to make the trip to Canada across the border in order to get like their fucking insulin and shit for prices that are actually decent.
Oh, dude, 100%. I mean, I remember during Bernie's campaign, he made a big show of it. I mean, taking people, typically elderly people, across the border from Vermont to Canada, and showing, hey, guys, there's an 800% markup on these prescription pills. And by the way, your insurance isn't even being applied here, right? So you're paying an 800% markup and you're giving this mafia don, you know, his kickback to allow you to purchase heavily inflated drug prices. It's crazy. And people will be like, oh, you know, I just don't want the government between me and my doctor. It's like, oh, you mean like an insurance company that's a huge pain in the ass? Let me tell you what, bro, I would rather have a fucking, like, it's crazy. Somebody that's literally just out here for your fucking money to turn a buck off of you. You want them in between you and your fucking doctor instead of the government, who is in its best going to be a passive model that's to benefit the people. It's like people have I don't know. I don't want to get back on the same horse I was just on, but you guys, we have to start dreaming a little bit bigger again. We've been so defeated. We've been so kicked down, right? Our options are Joe Biden and Donald Trump. The only way forward is to keep dreaming bigger again. And it's just fucking massively deflating to see people who, you know, like Robby, they just assume that the only option is to be out for yourself. The only option is to try and look out for number one and the community and all of the other outcomes.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's specifically disgusting. Like, I'm less than a month away from being completely out of health insurance. I'm not going to be on my parents' plan anymore once I turn 26. Like, you know, most Americans that are still able to be on their parents' plan until they're 26. I'm about to not have health insurance. You know what I'm saying? And like, that's the first time in my life I will have experienced that. And I just can't imagine again, trading the, Canadian experience, especially like, I was starting to think as an independent journalist, it almost encourages people to just sell out to a corporation instead of do their own independent thing. Because like, we don't get fucking healthcare for being independent YouTubers, but Robby does for working for a fucking corporation. And I'm sure he gets great healthcare. So it's just another incentive for people to completely sell out their values and, work for some corporate company instead of doing their own thing independently. Like I imagine Robby agrees is good. I don't think Robby is against the concept of independent media, but again, given our healthcare system in this country, it actually incentivizes you to sell out, to work for a corporation just to get that healthcare, which everyone needs. And you can't blame people for doing it because you literally need healthcare. And by the way, I'm not planning on doing that. I'll raw dog this shit until the wheels come off. But you know what I'm saying? It's up.
Yeah, man, it's terrible. And I mean, I was talking to one of my homies that's 40 and doesn't have health insurance and like loves their job and all that stuff. But it's like, dude, and people see that's proof Obamacare doesn't work. It's like, fuck you. Obamacare was never meant to work. It was designed to fail, to be pointed to and say, this is why we can't have this in this country. That's why it came from Mitt Romney's think tank. But we don't have to give you guys that lecture again.